Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take this evening ahead. Up next is an address by a wonderful keynote speaker, CEO Indian Organics Limited. May we please have with a huge round of applause on the stage, Mr. Sanjay Chaturvedi. With a big round of applause, we will welcome Mr. Sanjay Chaturvedi. I request Mr. Rajiv Parekh to kindly accompany Mr. Sanjay Chaturvedi. And I request our convener to felicitate Mr. Sanjay Chaturvedi. Dr. Sanjay Chaturvedi is the Executive Director and CEO of IOL Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals Limited. He is a seasoned global business executive having worked in the specialty chemicals and pharmaceutical industry for over 26 years in companies like Praj Industries, Dr. Reddy's, Aurobindo Pharma, Dow Chemicals and Roman Haas.
At the Dolomite, I've been listening to a lot of very interesting observations and words told by some of the industry experts. I'm not a paint expert, but my observation about this industry is where the shoe is pinching. This is not a product industry. It's a service industry. You know, if you think about if you think about, we buy an automobile, let's say a 20 lakh car. We will not give it to any mechanical service. We go to the showroom. Here we will buy 3 crore, 5 crore, 10 crore flat. And that paint service will be provided by the person who is not even qualified or certified. Excuse me, sir, it's not yet. Okay, so I'll talk from here then. Is this better? Okay. So the point I'm making is that, you know, if we buy an automobile that is worth maybe 20 lakhs, we will always get it serviced by a certified mechanic. But when we buy a home and we want that painted, that painting is done by a person who is not certified by anybody. We have no idea हमें क्या मिलने वाला है till the product is over. So I think we need to think of this industry not like a product industry, but like a service industry. There was a lot of talk about unicorns and so forth. There is no reason why a MSME company cannot partner with the urban clubs of the world and go nationwide in 1 month. It's a question of providing that service. And really, we recently bought a home and we got it painted. The paint job was fine, but the cleanup wasn't. So we need to think of it as an ecosystem and the total support. And as I was driving this morning from Ludhiana, I passed Panipat. You know, Panipat is where April 20th, 1526, the first battle of Panipat took place between Ibrahim Lodi and Babur. If you look at all data points, there is no way Babur should have won that battle. His army was 1/50th the size of Ibrahim Lodi's army. He had 0 elephants. In fact, his army had never seen an animal as large as an elephant. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, India was lost to the Mughals in 4-hour battle. In 4 hours, the startup beat the large company. So there are a lot of lessons that we can draw from history about what really took place. And one needs to remember, even Asian Paints was once an MSME. So, you know, I think the answer is within us and we need to explore. Don't think of it as a product company. Think of it as a service company and think more like a startup if you want to beat an incumbent. And remember, it doesn't matter what the industry is. Change is always brought by somebody from the outside, never an insider. because the bottleneck is always at the top of the bottle. Tesla was an unknown company a few years ago. Today the market cap of Tesla is more than the top 50 automotive competitors put together. Think about the design, think about how it gets used. So thank you all, and I want to give a disclaimer that I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. So everybody has their unique perspectives, and I'm limited by my own experiences as well. Here is an interesting slide that was a picture of the year last year in National Geographic. And if you look at this image, it looks like horses walking in a desert. But if you actually blow up that image, it is actually a drone shot of zebras walking, and what you see in the first image is the shadow of those zebras. So I think if you have a keen sense of observation, you will miss the illusion and get past the illusion. So what we feel today is, between a recession and war and volatility and raw material prices going up. There was a report from, I believe, Bank of America that said they expected oil to be at about $160. Today, ladies and gentlemen, oil is at about half of that. So we often feel that we are in the center of this perfect storm. And while you cannot control, the wind, you can only adjust your sail. And that's the message I want to leave you with. So a lot of people present in this room today want to create a business, and people want to build a global empire. But the reality is, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you ask yourself three questions: what do we do? You will say, well, we make paint and we sell paint. How do you do it? I have 5 plants, or I have 88 plants, or I have a dealer network, and that's how I do it. The third, which is the most important question, is why do you do it? And take the equation of money outside why. And I've been working in the corporate area for about 27 years now. I would say there are 2 out of maybe 500 instances where the promoter of a company or the owner of a company is able to articulate why are they in this business. And I think companies that are able to articulate the why will have a very long assured success. So, really, what is culture? This morning I was reading on LinkedIn, Mr. Harsh Mariwala wrote a wonderful piece. It talked about why are you not growing? You are not growing because you are too busy. Why are you so busy? You are so busy because you are not delegating. Why are you not delegating? Because you don't have the right talent. Why don't you have the right talent? Because you don't have the right culture. Why don't you have the right culture? Because you have no purpose other than money. So we talk about culture, but what is culture? Here is my personal definition. Culture of any organization is determined by the behavior exhibited or tolerated by the leader. So if somebody is showing bad behavior, and if you are tolerating it only because that person is an excellent salesperson, your culture is ruined. So this is really time for introspection to figure out how do we want to define the culture of our own organization. And whether you look at Towers Perrin or Deloitte or any of the big HR consulting firms, they will design extremely elaborate questionnaires on qualitatively how you measure culture. But in my experience, there is one simple question that you need to answer. Ask maybe 100 people in your organization, do you aspire to be like your supervisor or your manager? And the answer is a binary answer. It's either a yes or a no. If 80% of people say yes, then your culture is right. If most of them either don't know or say no, then you need to fix that culture. Now, What is the litmus test for culture? I have these three very simple metrics. Number one is, how are you treated at the reception of an organization when you go as a salesperson? You know, it's like that famous Tom Cruise movie where you know he's trying to woo this lady almost for the entire movie, and at the end of it, you know, she says, "You had me at hello." So, you know, how you treat people at the reception? Do you even have a proper reception? Do you have the courtesy to offer water, clean rest areas, coffee, just for a waiting area? That, to me, is a very single important determinant of what is the culture in your organization. Second is, how do you treat vendors? Not only when they come to your office, but when they call you on the phone and somebody you don't know, they are trying to sell a product or a service or some software. Do you even direct them to the right person within your organization, or you just say, "Mera time nahi hai," or "I can't be bothered with this, I'm too busy"? And the third is, please understand that in today's world, other than owners of companies, employees will come and go. There is nothing you can do to change that. The average age of an employee in an organization is less than 5 years. This used to be about 10 years ago, and 20 years ago this number used to be about 20 years. Today, the young generation, the Gen Z, is not as patient. They want quick results. And if they don't get it, they move on. The good news is there is ample opportunity for them to move on, and this opportunity simply did not exist in India 20 years ago. So how do you treat them when they leave? Do you even do exit interviews? Is there a formal mechanism in your organization to understand that out of 100 people that left, 80 left because they were simply disengaged? Why were they disengaged, and what are you doing to fix it? I think these three things really determine what the culture is. Culture is not determined by a ping pong table and free coffee and free food and all the gizmos. It's how you treat people, how you treat your customers, how you treat your vendors, and most importantly, how do you treat your employees. So here is an example, one of my favorite examples of Microsoft. Please notice that when the founder, Mr. Bill Gates, was running the company, you see very little appreciation in the stock price. He is the founder of the company. Then Mr. Steve Ballmer takes over, and for a period of almost 13 or 14 years, there is zero appreciation in the price of a company, and then Mr. Satya Nadella takes over in 2014. And ladies and gentlemen, the market cap of Microsoft today is half the GDP of India. Let me repeat that figure once again. The market cap of Microsoft today is half the GDP of India. What changed? Do you think, Mr. Bill Gates was less committed to his organization than Satya Nadella is? No. I think the big change was they moved as an organization from a know-it-all to a learn-it-all culture. And that had a very profound impact on the way they looked at products, on the way they looked at customers, and the way they did business. So here is, some of the myths of cultural fit. I sat through endless HR training programs, and it was drilled into me that, we have to hire a candidate that is a cultural fit for us. I personally believe that we should forget about cultural fit. That was the old way to look at things. You have to look for cultural assimilation. Because when you hire for a cultural fit, you are assuming that my culture is superior to yours. Maybe the other person is going to come in and teach you something that you don't know. You need to hire people who have very different perspectives. And different perspectives, not just in terms of gender, but they should come from different places. They should have had different life experiences. They should come from a different education background. If you look at McKinsey, which is arguably one of the most successful management consulting companies, the secret sauce of their success is they don't hire all MBAs. In every project that they take on, the team that they allocate is people with very different education backgrounds. We live in India where if you study economics, you will either go into academia or you might go into banking or financial services. You look at the West, economists and sociologists and anthropologists are the most sought after educational degrees for tech companies. Why? Why are they thinking so differently? Whereas we are simply following a very traditional path. I think the core message I want to leave you with is, please hire people that are different from you. They may make you uncomfortable. They may be outliers. But those are the people you need to pay a lot of attention to. So here is an example, what are the countries with high human development index? And you see the dark grays in North America, Europe and Australia. If you look at the core of why, it's not that they have more money, therefore they have high human development index. It's actually flipped. Because they have a high human development index, they are economically more prosperous. So, one thing common between all the countries with high HDI is that they have a common law, very egalitarian. There is no separate, Hindu United Family Law, religions will be treated separately. If you are a minority, we will treat you separately. One common law that applies to all citizens. These are countries that are celebrating diversity. You have a lot of immigrants. So today we celebrate, Indian immigrants going out and do remarkably well. Why are not we embarrassed or ashamed about the fact that foreign immigrants don't get anywhere in India? Are we assuming that we are somehow better? Because that diversity of people brings diversity of thought, and that is imperative to innovation. Which brings me to the third point, which is all these countries have a very high risk appetite. We are sitting here in a coatings association where butyl acrylate and monomethyl acrylate or a styrene copolymer with an acrylic. Ladies and gentlemen, none of it was invented in India. It was made cheaper in India. And by the way, the monomers are still not made in India. So you need incredible appetite for risk in R&D and innovation if you want to be different. Otherwise, if the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, every problem will look like a nail. You will simply try to make a product cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And yet, if that was the only solution, we would all be driving Tata Nanos, right? It's the cheapest car. Yet we don't. So simply going to low cost is not a solution. It's an illusion. So what does this mean for companies? So if you want to build an organization that is truly global and aspires for a high development index in the corporate sense, you need to treat people equally. What that means is, when you go into a high-rise building, you cannot have a separate director's elevator. You cannot have reserved parking. In fact, it's almost laughable that in most organizations, the people who have reserved parking are the people who don't need it because they have drivers. So, we need to flip this actually in terms of where is the opportunity? Are you really treating people equally? Do you have diversity of talent? Or does your organization look like clones of each other? And finally, on R&D investment, you have to play to win and not play not to lose. It's not that I'm putting money into R&D because I need to do something. You need to believe in it to a point that you will cross the hurdle. So if I think about, why do companies struggle to make it? The number one reason is this famous character Dhritarashtra. So what I mean by Dhritarashtra is, I am so blinded out of love for my son, daughter, nephew, rishtedar, gaonwala, ethnicity, whatever, that meritocracy be damned. It is a given that I am going to create this company and hand it over to the next generation. Whether they deserve it, whether they are capable, are they better than me, none of those questions are asked. And you please compare it to the West, where this is not even an issue. There is something culturally about us where instead of preparing our children for the road, we want to prepare the road for the children. This is a train to nowhere in terms of global scale. The second reason why we don't make it is Mogambo Khushbal. And what that means is the entire organization has one objective: to somehow make the top dog happy. Truth becomes irrelevant. As long as Mogambo is happy, you are happy, your career is fine. The third reason is, this famous movie, Kalia, which says, हम जहाँ शुरू होते हैं लाइन वहीं से खड़ी होती है, हम जहाँ खड़े होते हैं लाइन वहीं से शुरू होती है. Basically what this means is, I have no system, I have no process, I am the system. My word is the law. Now if you behave like that, you cannot scale up a business. You can only scale up a process. You cannot scale up people. So this first amongst equals and I don't need a system or a process and my word is the law, that needs to change. Now these are very simple, humorous messages that I've given, but they have very deep implications on how we think about our organizations. Two simple rules I like to live by. One is the X plus 2 rule and the other is the X minus 2 rule. The X plus 2 rule means that if I am hiring somebody as a regional head for sales, I should take into consideration that this person or candidate must have the potential of doing a job at least 2 levels higher than what I'm hiring this person for. Otherwise, in 2 years, you're going to lose this person. If you expect to keep an employee for 5 years or more, you've got to follow this principle. The other principle you need to lose is the X minus 2 principle, which is, I have a well-defined hierarchy. I am currently the CEO of IOL. I need some information about the chemicals business, but rather than going to Sanjeev Dua, who is my chemicals BU head, I reach out to 3 levels below in his team. I will surely get that information faster. But what is the message I am giving? The message I am giving to his team is, you are irrelevant. I don't really need you. So I have already disengaged that employee from that point onwards. So please, the higher you go up, resist the urge to go multiple layers below to get information about your organization. So here is one of my famous pictures, from 1927, Solvay conference. This was a group of scientists and physicists who simply got together for a weekend of discussing physics. They were collaborators, they were competitors, they were peers, and this is before the age of internet. 29 people got together in the city of Solvay outside of Brussels to discuss physics. What is remarkable is that 17 out of these 29 people went on to win a Nobel Prize. So, our parents have always told us, make good friends, the reason is they will impact your thought process. So, we need to hire people that are actually better than us and not be threatened, what if they take our job? If they take our job, that's even great, because I will naturally move up. So stop that. And here is, the way I think about companies. On left, I have an axis of decision making, and on Y, I have the axis of executing that decision. The best run companies make decisions in a democratic way, but they execute them in an autocratic way. And the worst run companies make decisions in an autocratic way and execute them in a democratic way. So you need to figure out on this two-dimensional spectrum where you lie. You need to reward failures. So as an organization, if you're not failing at anything, I was very enthused, Kamdhenu Paints, they came from an entirely different industry and yet successful in paints. And there are industries from the paint group that have been at this for decades. How did Kamdhenu see an opportunity that you did not? You need to reward failures. And if you're not learning from your failures, you have a problem. We have a lot of takeoff meetings. We have a lot of celebrations of things done well. I achieved 100 crores of revenue in this region or 1,000 crores in exports and is celebrated. But I will never celebrate a failure. Why? If you don't celebrate failure, that means you are not taking the learning from that failure and disseminating that within your organization. Don't try to hide failures. If you fail enough, you will succeed. So here are a couple of things what not to do. Micromanagement, small-scale thinking, and very important in today's world. If you treat your employees like employees, they will behave like employees. Please do not make the mistake of saying we are one family. No. You are the owner. The employees are employees. Treat them like equity partners. Why do you see a lot of young generation going to all the unicorns that were mentioned? By the way, one thing common amongst all those unicorns, every employee has equity and stock options. So you want to replicate that financial behavior, start replicating that management behavior as well. Because the second one is an outcome of the first one. Do not ignore Generation Z. They are super smart, they are more talented.
In his talk, President IPCA, Mr. Chaturvedi, presenting a token of appreciation to
Mr. Sanjay Chaturvedi. Mr. Sanjay Chaturvedi, I have a quick question, very pressing question. Would you happen to remember the name of the Tom Cruise movie that you mentioned? Asking for a friend.
Jerry Maguire.
Thank you, ma'am.